He discovered what was then called the homophile movement as a University of Texas at Austin undergraduate, and he spent the summer of 1958 working for the Mattachine Society in New York City. Wicker convinced the society to start publicizing its events, making Wicker the first public relations person in the GLBT movement in the United States. At the University of Texas, he briefly also directed Wicker research studies modeled after the Daughters of Bilitis to lead homophile movements in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. After graduation, Wicker returned to New York City, starting the Homosexual League of New York as a new organization to distance himself from the Mattachine Society and participating in a groundbreaking 90-minute broadcast about gay people on WBAI radio in July 1962. It is believed that on January 31st, 1964, Wicker was the first openly gay person on East Coast television through his appearance on the Les Crane Show. Also that year, he and others picketed New York City's Whitehall Street Induction Center because gay men's draft records were not being kept confidential. It is believed to be the first U.S. gay rights demonstration. In 1972, he and Kay Lahusen, under the name Kay Tobin, co-authored the Gay Crusaders. Wicker joined the Gay Activists Alliance, which focused only on gay issues, unlike the larger Gay Liberation Front, and he covered GAA events for The Advocate and gay magazines. Since 2009, he has been active in the radical fairy communities in both Tennessee and New York. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you tonight Randy Wicker.
Woo!
Tonight, and he gave me most of the information that I included in it. A few minor details. I heard a broadcast on WBAI, 1962, and these psychiatrists were claiming they could cure homosexuals in 8 hours at $50 an hour counseling. And I went to BAI and said, why are you broadcasting this nonsense? We homosexuals are the experts on ourselves. And they said, could you get together a panel for us to broadcast? I said, sure. So I went out and I got 8 people together. And then I had a great break. The Journal American, which was the equivalent of Fox News in its day, very right-wing newspaper, had a columnist named Jack O'Brien who talked about WBAI clubbing the bottom of the sickly barrel bottom to end up with this 8-man or something panel discussing, it's just what changes others to WSICK. Now, this was 1 week before the program was to be aired. And this is where promotion comes in. I took that article and went around for the next 6 or 7 days. I remember going up to the New York Times and handing the man my business card. Homosexual League of New York, Randolph Wicker, Homosexual League of New York, Public Relations Director. This little old man looked at it, about my age, looked at it and said, does this card mean what it says? I said, what else would it mean? Well, the same thing, a reporter came out and talked to me, and I went to all these other publications, knocking on the doors, introducing myself, giving them this Jack O'Brien attack on the program. Make a long story short, to this day, it's the most publicized program that BAI has ever done. We ended up getting a full-page coverage in Newsweek magazine under the title Minority Listening. We got a review in the New York Times. We got a news story in the New York Times. We got a news story in Variety. We got on the AMP Wire. And all of a sudden, homosexuality was somewhat in the news. Well, when homosexuality gets in the news, right-wingers get busy. So they went and they tried to get WBAI's broadcast license revoked. After all, they were putting perverts on the air. Well, the Federal Communications Commission ruled that homosexuality was a legitimate issue to be discussed publicly. And with that gave the green flag to every radio station in the country, every TV station in the country, that they could have a discussion or a panel on homosexuality. And I was the only person who was out in public, full face, that could go and fulfill that role. There were other people in the organization. I was the 16th member when I joined in 1958. Other people, though, couldn't go, that were articulate and informed, because they had jobs. They were worried about careers. Well, anyway, I promoted that and went on, as he mentioned, the Gus Crane Show being the first, public person to appear, on TV as well. My first 2 or 3 visits to Chicago were to be on the Cup Show. And then I decided that I would try writing, because a friend of mine, a heterosexual fellow editing a slick magazine called Escapade, said, just give me an excerpt from your broadcast and I can publish them, and you get $250, $300, which was good money in those days. And I started getting into professional writing, so-called professional writing. Well, that's really what I was going to concentrate on tonight. We broadcast the first show, but then there was going to be a national show. And this was a very turning point in my life. They filmed the show, and in the show, a psychiatrist called Sandra Moran leaned forward, Gus Crane leaned forward to Sandra Moran and says, "Dr. Moran, you mean there can be well-adjusted, healthy, normal homosexuals?" And he was Viennese, and he had a cigar the whole thing. He had been one of the students of Young, a really top name. And he sort of puffed on his cigar. He said, "But of course, look there." And when he said, "Look there," I went like, "No, not me." Because the red light came on the camera. And the last thing I wanted to be was the poster boy of the healthy homosexual movement. Because the fact of the matter was, I might be wearing a black suit and tie in those days, but I was living in poverty. Because I had, as I say in the part of the speech that he didn't give for me, writing is an art. However, it sucks at paying the rent. Now, don't get assaulted by some of the remarks I continue to make here. I've been published by the Nation magazine, the Herald Tribune, that really dates from the New York Herald Tribune, and but to earn a steady income, I ended up working as editor of 4 different tit magazines. It just happened my best friend's girlfriend had gotten pregnant and nearly died of a miscarriage they had induced with quinine, because abortion was illegal. And that caused me to get extremely interested in the issue of legalized abortion. I went out and I joined the Sex Freedom League. And with the help of the Sex Freedom League, we did picket the Whitehall Induction Center. And that has been something people like to ignore for several reasons, historians. I became a very controversial person. First I joined the Sex Freedom League. I did have one last big activity as 1965 as a Mattachino. I'm the last of the active Mattachinos. We're always bad now, but let me tell you, when I started, we were criminals by law except in Illinois. We were sick by the psychiatrists. We were sinners by the clergy. We were untouchable, so to speak. There are 1 or 2 other people still alive that were active as I was, but they mainly spend their time on lists arguing about the importance of one magazine versus the Mattachine Society. I I went on much further than they did. I essentially got disillusioned, to tell you the truth, with the gay movement in about the mid-60s. I didn't think gays would ever get organized, join the Sex Freedom League, the anti-war movement. I also ended up being a founder of MEMAR with Allen Ginsberg, legalized pot. So today I'm really not for legalization, I'm for decriminalization. If you understand the issue, you understand what I mean. I think it's a nice way to out your brain. I don't think it's a gateway drug, but I always tell youth groups whenever I talk to them, you know, I smoked pot, I sat behind the typewriter, I typed what I thought was absolutely fabulous, and the next morning I read it was all gibberish. I was the first listed editor of the Marijuana Newsletter, you know, with Julie Kupperberg, Ed Sanders, Allen Ginsberg, and it wasn't because they told me, oh, because you're a professional writer. Big deal, no. They wanted me to be the one that got busted. As a hobby, while I was doing the tip books, I commenced publishing slogan buttons. The first successful one, actually, was Equality for Homosexuals. I went to a gay party in Queens. This was probably the most socially successful night of my life. I go to a gay party. Have you ever gone to a gay party? I stood in the corner of the room. I have every single person in that party come over to you and introduce themselves and ask you where you got that Equality for Homosexuals button. We told them I published it. And well, where's that? Could I get one? Yeah, 25 cents each. And I ended up going home that night, having met everyone at the party, on their initiative, made $38, which in 1964 or 5 was probably equivalent to $150, $200 tonight, and ended up going home with the best-looking guy at the party. So that was the introduction of myself to the button business. I've been signed to do a book entitled What People Think About Money by Random House. And what happened was, after I interviewed one mother that was raising her daughter on welfare, and she explained how she had to choose between clothing and clothing for her daughter or food for the table, I really decided that I couldn't care less what people thought about money. I wanted to make some money. A great uncle, now this is myth coming to life, folks. A great uncle actually died and left me 3% of his estate, which gave me a nest egg of $3,500. And I had no college debt because in those days college was free or virtually free. So I opened a button shop on St. Mark's Place in 1967 and grossed $200,000 and then $40,000 my first year in business. It was even written up by one of the founders of this organization, Aaron, in the Washington Post financial page, Bull Market in Buttons. I thought that was an interesting thing to realize that he was the one that covered my early coverage. I had gotten a job finally. I missed part of the story. On my way to be in opening the button shop, I had mentioned I had edited these tip magazines, and I'd been profiled by Dick Chapman at the New York Herald Tribune as this guy has a job anybody would die for. You know, he had a Marilyn Monroe calendar hanging over his desk, and he edits tip magazines. He does nothing all day but, deal with, write captions, funny captions, girls hugging trees, she loves trees, stuff like that. And guess what? He's homosexual. It was a very humorous article. But the Herald Tribune said, because it was a friendly and funny article, they said, we don't talk about homosexuals this way. So it ended up being Paul Krasner, the realist, who published the article. The vanity editor saw the article, immediately recognized it was me, walked into the publisher's office, and said, look who you have working on your tip magazines. Well, I've been doing such a good job that he thought the article was hilarious, and he thought that I'd been doing a fabulous job. When I finally handed in my resignation because I decided to open the button shop, he said, can you find me another one of those homosexual geniuses? Reverse discrimination, very rare in those days, I might add. I said, yeah, I have one. I said, already published with a for Jack Nichols. I gave Jack his first credits in print, and then he took over my job at Countrywide. And by coincidence, they hired Al Goldstein to be his assistant. Al Goldstein, as you might know, about a year later, founded a newspaper called Screw, which was quite a sensation. And I had opened the button shop, and he would come in with 100, 200 copies at a time, and I'd pay him cash on delivery because they were selling like hotcakes, and he needed the money. I had sworn that my pen was not for sale when I became self-employed. I said, this pen is not for hire. I consider professional writing to be prostitution of the soul. And I can tell you, from experience, that prostitution of the soul is worse than prostitution of the body. And I am authority because I have done both.
I don't think they knew what they were getting.
It's been several years. In 1970, in my writing career, I did manage to negotiate the Dog Day Afternoon movie because of my coverage for the gay press. I wrote for the gay press only. I only wrote what I wanted to write. I wasn't frightened. It was just in between writing because my main business began in 1974 with my lover, who died 18 years later in 1990, got me into the antique business. So I sold my body and my life to free enterprise and business. And I felt that that was probably the best step I ever took in life. You know, is not being a professional writer, but keeping writing as an art or pleasure and going and working at something else that wasn't so close to what was in me. I hope that a lot of you do not have that same experience. I hope that my feelings about professional writing are not shared by too many in this room, because I hope that you're having a happy life. I did spend $5,000 exposing the corrupt group that was running the Gay Pride Day Parade in 1992. In 1997, I capped off my career, which I'm probably most famous for on the internet, by being the first human cloning activist. It was on BBC, Japanese television. They gave me a watch and all these other events. And I had bought a video camera for the equivalent of about $15,000 when I made my first money in the button business and closed it. And covered the second Gay Pride March. At GAA, I covered several of their actions, including them taking over a marriage bureau and throwing a gay wedding party, gay engagement party back in 1971. You can see all this on the internet, on my channel on YouTube. Under the gay, I have a gay history section which has most of this stuff in it. And the featured thing is the best TV interview I ever did, which would happen on Pittsburgh, not in New York City, because the national program that they taped was canceled because the Crane show was going national at that point, and they said in Kansas City, if you put perverts like that on the air, we're going to cancel the Les Crane show. So, you know, you never know. It isn't in print until it runs, or it isn't broadcast. It never happened. And there are a lot of sayings like that. Let me tell you, I know that for the truth. In conclusion, I'd like to urge all of you. I've become very active as a transgender activist. I was a transphobe. Ignore my hostile comments in the Vito Russo movie from 1971 when I said we in the gay movement are just stuck with drag queens. I knew nothing about gender identity issues. Ultimately, Sylvia Rivera went from being my worst enemy to my best friend. Marsha B. Johnson, who we've produced a movie about, a documentary about, was a house mother of my extended gay family. And I really think that that is one of the major areas. It's very misunderstood, especially within the male gay community. Heterosexual males are more understanding of people that may want to change genders from male to female, because why wouldn't you want to be glamorous and beautiful as a woman from their point of view? Finally, to this date, however, getting screw busted remains for me the high point of my writing career. That is, with the one exception of being honored here tonight. Thank you very much.
Get your award, Rick.
Randy, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm sure you don't consider yourself a brave man, but we are all here tonight, and we're all beneficiaries of your bravery when it wasn't very cool to talk about.
Important to all of us here as part of our continuing coverage of bullying in this country. I also want to thank all my colleagues that worked with me to bring both stories to our audiences. And additionally, I'd like to congratulate my colleague, Nkapile Mabuse of CNN International, who was also honored in the Excellence in Network News category for her startling report, World's Untold Stories, Corrective Rape. And again, a congratulations to all the journalists recognized this evening. Thank you for all the work you do. I hope you have a great evening.